This week on Chicago Newsroom 2.0, Illinois Speaker of the House, Emanuel Welch, joins me to discuss some of the key Illinois legislative initiatives on the docket for the upcoming season.
Executive strategist and veteran affairs expert Victor LaGroon is here to discuss global conflicts and shifting geopolitics from a Chicago perspective.
Chicago Board of Election Commissioners Max Bever debunks election myths.
And Michael Krohn and Darcie Price-Wallace talk about the healing power of meditation. I'm Maria Doughty.
And I'm Dr. Suzet McKinney. We've put together an incredible hour of local news and information that matters to most Chicagoans.
And it all starts right now.
The Illinois General Assembly is preparing to return to Springfield for another legislative session, and with it comes a long list of priorities that could shape the state's economic future, public safety policies, education funding, and the services many Illinois residents rely on every day. At the center of those conversations is Emanuel Welch, who has served as Speaker of the Illinois House of Representatives since 2021, becoming the first Black lawmaker in state history to hold that role. As Speaker, Welch oversees the legislative agenda in the House, guiding debates on everything from the state budget to economic development, public safety initiatives, and education policy. With lawmakers preparing for the upcoming session in Springfield, many are watching closely to see which priorities will rise to the top and how state leaders plan to address ongoing challenges, including fiscal pressures, workforce development, and investments in communities across Illinois. Speaker Welch joins us now to discuss what lawmakers will be focusing on in the months ahead. Mr. Speaker, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Oh, Suzette, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Fantastic. So as lawmakers prepare to return to Springfield, what are the top legislative priorities that you believe the Illinois House should focus on in the upcoming session?
Well, this time of year, we're laser focused on one thing, and that's the state budget. Every year, we have to pass a balanced budget by May 31st. And so when we return for the legislative session, we will start the Appropriations Committee hearings in the House and the Senate with a goal of meeting in May to pass another balanced budget. Under Governor Pritzker, he's come before us and presented 8 balanced budget proposals. After he gives us a proposal, the legislature takes it from there. He came before us in February, and now it's our turn to put it all together. And at the end of the day, we need to pass a budget that's responsible and compassionate, that really talks about people.
Are you anticipating any challenges to being able to pass a balanced budget this year? Well,
I think the biggest challenge is what's happening in Washington. This president and this administration is making it harder and harder on everyday people. And, you know, we see the cost of living continues to rise. Instead of grocery prices going down on day one, they went up. And they continue to go up. And this unnecessary war in Iran that's costing over $1 billion already. We see that gas prices are going up. With gas prices going up, other things are going to go up. They're just making the cost of living harder. And so from a state perspective, we have to do the things that we can do with the things that we can control to try to bring costs down. An example is this year that we eliminated the grocery tax. If there's things like that that we can do that's within our control that can help everyday people, we're looking for that.
So you've mentioned a few budget and fiscal pressures, so let's just stay with that trend. Illinois clearly has made progress in stabilizing its finances over the past several years, but there are still concerns about other budget pressures and future budget pressures. So how is the House approaching, again, this budget cycle, but are there other challenges separate and aside from the federal government that you might be anticipating at this point?
Yeah, let's not understate the pressures from the federal government. When the governor came to us with his State of the State address in February, the hit to the state of Illinois because of Trump's big ugly bill is already $8.4 billion. That's $8.4 billion that we are owed that we're no longer going to get. Illinois is one of the top 5 states that pays into the federal government. They should be giving us money instead of taking it away. We can't ignore that. And so we have to figure out a way to at least try to maintain what groups are getting, what schools are getting, what villages and communities across the state are getting, so that they don't hurt. But we also have to look ahead. We got to worry about this next year, but we also have to look ahead. And so I've been out there talking about putting on the ballot a surcharge tax on income over $1 million. I believe that this is something similar to Massachusetts that was passed in 2022 that has seen tremendous benefits for the state of Massachusetts that we could realize right here. We could make Illinois the destination place to be by also fixing our fiscal problems with the surcharge tax, but we can also possibly, in doing that, eliminate the estate tax.
Wonderful. And thank you for mentioning the fact that Illinois is one of very few states that actually pays into the federal government. I think that's something that taxpayers often misunderstand or just don't understand at all. So
we're in the top 5.
Sure. So with respect to jobs, many communities across Illinois, but particularly in Chicago and some of the more urban areas, are looking for policies that strengthen local economies and support small businesses. So are there any legislative agenda initiatives that you're considering to promote economic growth and job creation?
Absolutely. Passing a balanced budget is so critical because someone asked me a while back, give me some examples of business initiatives that you've passed. I said, number one is the budget. The budget last year was $55 billion of general revenue funds from the state of Illinois, $55 billion. Those money goes to nonprofits, small business incentives, so many different things. It goes to community colleges that help produce a workforce. It goes to Hire 360 that help produce workforce, to our universities that help produce workforce. That budget is so critical to what happens in Illinois. Just yesterday, I was in Kankakee County with the governor and the Senate president because CSL Behring announced a $1.5 billion investment in their facility in Kankakee County because of the things that we passed in our state budget. That's going to help not just the state of Illinois, but that entire area around that facility just thrive. That's just one example of the things that are happening because of the incentives we put in a budget.
People often think about passing the budget as just the way the state is spending money, and they don't always consider where the state is spending that money and how those expenditures help their communities.
That's right.
So, moving on to public safety, this is something that we talk about across the state, but particularly in urban areas, because public safety continues to be a major concern for many Illinois residents. What role do you see the legislature playing this year in addressing both public safety as well as broader investments in communities that these communities say they need?
Well, I think the legislature the last few years has done a remarkable job from a public safety standpoint because of the Reimagine Public Safety Act. We've been investing heavily in violence prevention programs that have helped bring down crime. If you look at the crime statistics in Chicago and across Illinois, crime is down significantly. A large part of that is because of the investments in violence prevention programs. And you know what? The biggest threat to that right now is Donald Trump. He's attacking Reimagine Public Safety dollars. He's looking at states like Illinois and taking those monies away from us. And so as we're seeing investments and progress in reducing crime, this administration is a threat to that.
Wow, a lot going on. So let's talk a little bit more about legislative dynamics. The Illinois House includes a wide range of viewpoints, even within the same party. So as the Speaker, how do you approach building consensus among lawmakers to move major legislation forward?
Yeah, I tell our caucus, I've told them from day one of being Speaker, it's almost become a mantra. Diversity is our strength. We have a lot of voices in our caucus. Our caucus looks like Illinois. And I'm really proud of that. Diversity is our strength, but our power comes from our unity.
That's right.
And at some point, we have to be done talking about it and be about it. And we have to come together and work together to get things done. And we've done a very good job of working as a unified caucus, getting some big things done as a caucus with the governor, with the Senate. And I'm really proud of that. And it takes work. It takes time.
Yes, it does.
But we get it done.
Okay. Well, With the election coming up in just a few short days, I have to ask a question about this election. I saw a news headline today that mentioned that Donald Trump is going to refrain from signing any bills until there's a voter ID bill that is approved and passed. What are your thoughts there in terms of the continuous efforts around voter suppression and making it more difficult for everyday residents just to go to the polls and exercise their rights?
Listen, Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, and he's trying to do anything and everything he can to disrupt the electoral process across this country. He's trying to make it harder to vote because when people vote, typically Republicans lose. When you let the people vote, when the people get to speak, typically Republicans lose. They win by cheating. They win by suppressing votes. They win by passing things like the SAVE Act. All that's going to do is hurt women voters, minority voters, and all those that has been disenfranchised by this government would be further disenfranchised. And so we have to stand up, speak up, and fight like hell to make sure the SAVE Act does not pass. And understand that he's backed up what he said before, and we need to start believing this man, because really this is all about attacking our democracy and our elections process.
Would you offer any sort of strategies or tactics that voters can employ to ensure their ability to be able to cast their votes when they go to the polls next week?
Well, number one, if you're going to vote by mail, get that in the mail now, because they are trying through the U.S. Post Office to mess with postmarks. And if your ballot doesn't get in before Election Day, it won't be counted.
In or postmarked?
It has to be postmarked before Election Day.
Okay.
And we want to make sure you get those in because the U.S. Post Office has changed their processes, and we don't want even the appearance of voter suppression or give them the opportunity to voter suppress any other mail-in ballots. We also need to make sure in November, people come out to vote, and they come out to vote because we need to take back the House and the Senate, at least one of them, if we're going to slow this administration down. We need this. The Republican Party has basically given their power away to this president. We need checks and balances. That's how this system is set up. And right now we don't have that with the Republicans in complete charge.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And I think at this point, just with a lot of what we've seen happen over the past just over a year, there have been new policies, new mandates that have hurt Democrats, Republicans, independents, and, all of us. So I love the point about checks and balances. I do have a wrap-up question, but before I wrap up, I failed to ask, with regards to education and workforce development, what proposals might we see in this session aimed at strengthening schools? There's a lot of talk about schools and the future of our educational system. So policies or proposals aimed at strengthening schools, expanding higher education access, or preparing more workers for emerging industries.
That's right. Well, one of the things that we're constantly battling is to make sure we fund the evidence-based funding formula. The governor's proposal at least funds the evidence-based funding formula an additional $305 million. That would be over $2 billion since I become speaker in new money in the evidence-based funding formula. It also proposes to continue funding MAP grants for low-income students to go to college. Last year, any student that applied, that qualified for a MAP grant received it. We want to make sure those grants are still there so that folks can go to college and afford it. And at the end of the day, it's all about making sure we fully fund EBF, make sure MAP is available. But if we can also pass a higher education funding formula similar to the evidence-based funding formula, which is for K through 12, that would also help on the higher education level. That one may be more of a long-term solution that the surcharge tax can help. But there's a lot of things in play right now.
Excellent. So looking ahead, what would you consider a successful legislative session for Illinois by the time lawmakers adjourn later this year?
I think if we can pass yet another balanced, responsible, and compassionate budget, that's always the first test. A budget that helps people, doesn't hurt people. I tell people all the time, what's your why? Know your why, start with your why. We're all here to help people. And to me, that budget is about helping people.
Speaker Welch, thank you again so much for making time to speak with me today, but also all of our viewers. It was such a pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure was mine. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I'm Rayshawn Vance.
And I'm Raymond Vance.
We are Sapphire Rays of Sunshine, a nonprofit in Chicago using jazz and R&B music to combat depression.
Through performances and workshops, we create musical pathways to wellness, fostering resilience, healing, and joy.
Learn more at sros.org.
They say television is about sitting back. We say it's about stepping up. Your block has stories worth telling. Your neighbors have voices worth hearing. Chicago has a heartbeat worth sharing. Stop watching their world. Start showing yours. It's time to tune in and be seen. Can TV, always here, always yours. Experience the power of community television.
From global conflicts and shifting geopolitics to the evolving role of voters in our democracy, the forces shaping our political landscape today are complex, and their consequences often reach far beyond Washington. Yet the ways these issues intersect with the lived experiences of communities here at home, particularly within Black communities, are not always a part of the national conversation. Our next guest, a U.S. Army veteran who served as an intelligence analyst with the elite 10th Mountain District Division, has built a career at the intersection of healthcare systems, public policy, and community engagement, and he has been exploring those intersections, examining how international events, civic participation, and the expectations we place on political leadership all connect to broader questions of equity, representation, and responsibility in American democracy. Mr. Victor LaGroon, welcome to the Newsroom.
Pleasure to meet you again, Dr. McKinney. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you.
So let's jump right in and talk about one of the items that is most pressing on everyone's mind today. Why does the Iran war and geopolitics matter to the Black community?
You know, so all things are connected, especially when it comes to politics. And so when we see internationally that there's conflict, there's strife, there's disruption, often that plays out differently in different communities. But for underserved communities, what we see is that that has a financial toll that it starts taking almost immediately. So we see when people are struggling financially and their price of gas is going up, that means they can't drive as much as they want to. Mm-hmm. That means they have to start making decisions about food because supply chain is impacted. And so all things are connected. We live in a global economy, so what happens abroad often has an impact right here in Chicago.
But don't you think most people see the war playing out on television and they think, well, that's something that's happening somewhere else. It doesn't really affect me here. You know, give us a few more examples of how people can better understand how this war is impacting their everyday lives.
Absolutely. So let's look at the global war on terrorism. So back in 2000, the average gas price was roughly around $1.05. We haven't seen that since, right? So 20 years of warfare taught us a lot of things. And part of what it taught us is that once the world changes, everything changes for everyone. And so when our economy changes, it doesn't just stay fixed in just a financial place. It impacts budgets. And those budgets impact how we educate our children, how we feed kids, how we provide health care for underserved communities. And so when we struggle to ensure that we can take care of the least of us, that means right here at home, we have to figure out a way to now meet those needs. So when our federal government is bogged down in a long-term war, today, for example, we're spending roughly around $900 million at war every single day. And so that means we're on pace to spend roughly about $250 billion. That money comes from somewhere. And so that means we're going to have a harder time ensuring we can take care of the American people. And that means right here at home in Chicago, we're going to have to make sure we can solve some difficult challenges.
It's really interesting that you mentioned budgets and our educational system. We just had the Speaker of the House, Emanuel Welch here, talking about the state needing to pass a balanced budget and really explaining to our viewers how the ability to pass a balanced budget affects schools and our education system and those things. So I appreciate you mentioning that. But those are some of the more visible ways that we see war impacting everyday citizens. What are some of the less visible ways that events of war can ripple into other issues that we deal with every day, such as healthcare outcomes, particularly in underserved communities, both here in the U.S. and globally?
Absolutely. So part of what we also see is the impact that it has on us psychologically, because every single day you're dealing with the constant barrage of news saying there's a level of threat that the U.S. is under. That means our big cities are constantly under that security threat as well. And so we take in all of this anxiety, and that means we have to think about how we take care of people at the base level. So it's not just the economic impact that it has a social impact as well. It also breeds distrust in different communities. So we want to make sure that people are not being marginalized, not being stereotyped. It creates a little conflict within our own community as we start thinking about who's our friend, who's our ally, and who might be a potential enemy. And so there's a lot to manage when we have conflict abroad. And more importantly, there's a lot of dialogue that needs to continue to happen at the local community level. And that's why our local leaders are so important.
So talking about seeing all these images every day and hearing all these horrible stories, mental health and mental health care is another issue that people in communities have to deal with every day.
100%. Absolutely.
So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about, sort of what happens initially before we get to the point of war, and that is voting. I spoke about that a little bit with Speaker Welch, but let's talk about the Black vote. Does it still matter beyond local elections? And if so, explain to our viewers why and how.
Sure. So let's look at history. I think one of the turning points in the 60s and 70s was that during the Vietnam War, where we saw people from underserved communities being heavily drafted, what really made a difference was that we got out, we were vocal, we were verbal, we protested, and people voted. And so when you vote for better policies, when you vote better candidates, you often get better results. And so time and time again, when times have been challenging, communities have had to muster up the willpower to come out and vote and to show up and express their own best interests. And so it is a challenge. But at the same time, we wouldn't have our vote being marginalized by this administration if it wasn't important. If your local vote doesn't matter, then that means the person you send to Congress that has to fight that fight on behalf of your community doesn't matter, right? And so we know that it matters because people are fighting every single day to create obstacles, to create myths, to disingenuine people when it comes to information around where you can get your vote read, how you can get access, what types of IDs people need. And so there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation that tries to get people to not show up at polls. So every single day we have to be vigilant. We have to be deliberate in our intent. And we have to make sure we're having that conversation with our neighbors. This is where we're going to go vote. This is how you get access. This is how far in advance. You do have to be really vocal about this because at the end of the day, your vote matters more than anything else you have in this country, right? That is the most important tool you can use to change your life and also the future life of your family.
That's right. And, we want to encourage our audience members to go out and exercise their right to vote. It doesn't matter what party you affiliate with. But, we have a lot of people within our community, the Black community in particular, that not only believes that their vote doesn't count, but are adamant in this argument that, well, what difference does it make? I'm not going to go. So what types of advice would you give our viewers when they talk to their family members and their neighbors and they encounter people that say, well, I'm not going to go out because it really doesn't matter? What can our audience members and our viewers say to their friends and their family members and their neighbors?
First, you got to let them know how important they are to you, right? And their voice is important. It's important that that voice gets exercised and that it gets heard. But in order to do that, we've got to keep people in the conversation. I think what happens far too often, and I hear this as I travel and talk to different community members, people feel marginalized. And when you're marginalized, you feel pushed to the side and you become invisible in many ways. And so we have to bring everyday people back to the center. We have to make sure we remind them about how important they are, but also let them know you need them in the fight with you. You need them in the fight for your for your ability to buy groceries, for your ability to pay your electric bill, for your ability to take care of your children, provide health care, and all those important things so that we can live vibrant and better lives. And so it's incumbent on us to talk to the people, to listen to people's concerns. And when people tell me, hey, I don't feel like it matters, I have to convince you and I have to get you back on page to ensure that you know I need you as much as you need me. And this is how we show up for one another. Absolutely.
So we're talking about voting.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about elections.
Absolutely.
So it's midterm season, and we're seeing here in Illinois, in many other places across the country, but I think for our viewers in particular, here in Illinois, we have a couple of congressional races that are really heated, and a Senate race that's also really heated. I've heard a lot of chatter, if you will, and seen a lot of news articles written about this current Senate race and how, you know, there are two candidates from one racial background and a third candidate from another background, and all of this talk about splitting the vote and too many people being in the race. What do you think about benchmarks or defined qualifications for political candidates? Should we have benchmarks? Should we have defined qualifications for candidates? And would this help shrink the number of people running for office?
You know, so that's really interesting because I talk to a lot of people about this, and I hear some of the same conversations on both sides. You know, years ago, we didn't have to tell certain people, hey, you're not qualified for this role. People knew that there were things they should have done by that point before they're asking the American people, can I represent you? Today, unfortunately, the political landscape has changed. Many people find themselves on social media becoming an expert on something and feeling that, hey, I can go out there and make a difference. And I think it's important that all of us feel that we can make a difference. I think it's also important that we understand what skills we need to bring to the table before getting to the table. And so now you see a lot of crowded fields and different people showing up saying, hey, you know, the 10 of us should be considered for these opportunities. And I think what people in our communities need is to have a very clear understanding of what it takes to get work done in DC, just like we need to understand what it takes to get done in city council and in the mayor's run, right? And so we're looking at candidates today, and you have to look at their resume and start deciding early on, is this person a serious, viable candidate? And that's an individual choice with an individual vote. But I think you're going to continue to hear this discussion as we keep having these elections, and 12 people are now fundraising and texting and calling and making commercials. I think it does have some voter fatigue as a result of that. And what we don't want is for people to get disengaged from our voting process.
Yeah. So you talked about D.C. I know you spend quite a bit of your time in D.C. You are a former Biden administration appointee.
I am.
As someone who has been in D.C., understands how it works there, in your opinion, how should voters sift through the sea of candidates to figure out who is going to best represent them in Washington?
Absolutely. So I look at people's voting history. Typically, if someone's running for a role like Congress or the Senate, they should have had some experience where they've advanced policy that they themselves have authored, that they've gotten others to come to the table to support. If you've done big work, you'll be capable of doing big work. Because it's important to recognize that when you're in D.C., there are no small tasks. Everything is important. You are voting on behalf of millions of people every single time. So we need people who can read policy and understand and digest what this means for their constituents back home. But also people who can advocate and be their biggest, brightest voice for those voiceless people back home waving, say, hey, what about us? What about me? And so I want you to take a clear indicator of what's important as you look at a legislator. And today we see a lot of people raising their hands, eager to serve. I want to know how qualified you are beforehand. I also want to know what morality you will take with you to DC that will drive your voting behavior. Because at the same day, I want my legislators to be aligned with my values.
All right. Well, as we begin to bring our conversation today to a close, as I mentioned at the top of the segment, you've worked in government, healthcare systems, as well as the private sector. So from your perspective, What other types of leadership qualities? You've already started to touch on this, but just give us again a summary of the type of leadership qualities that are most important right now. Yeah. If we want institutions, whether those are government or healthcare institutions, to rebuild public trust and deliver real progress for communities that have historically been left behind.
Yeah. I look for candidates who have a high emotional intelligence, right? Mm-hmm. Who can recognize they may not have the expertise in one area, but they're willing to bring other people who are smarter than them to the table, right? So that's number one. Number two, what do you really care about? And that means, what do you write about? What do you talk about? What video is out there about you speaking on important things? Mm-hmm. What things have you voted on in the past if you were an alderman or a state rep? Right, or a state senator. So I need to know where your values align and where they sit. And then how do you treat people? I think it's important that in the people business, right, when we're advocating for others legislatively, that you find people who care about the things that matter to everyday people. I think that our parties certainly recognize that today more than ever, Americans are more vocal. They have social media. They are very vocal on the internet around what they care about, what they don't care about, whether we feel like we should be in war or not, whether we should feel like we should be taking care of the troops or not, right? But also how we take care of our children, how we build an America for all Americans. And that means you've really got to analyze the person in front of you asking to serve you and your family.
Amen. Well, Mr. LaGroon, you've given our viewers so many things to think about, so many great gems to consider as they prepare to go into the voting booth. And so on behalf of CAN TV and all of our viewers, I would say thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Dr. McKinney, and thank you to CAN TV. I think this is a great platform, and I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. On the other side of the break, Chicago Board of Election Commissioners Max Bever is here with the first edition of the new Enterprise segment, Election Myth Busting.
They say television is about sitting back. We say it's about stepping up. Your block has stories worth telling. Your neighbors have voices worth hearing. Chicago has a heartbeat worth sharing. Stop watching their world. Start showing yours. It's time to tune in and be seen. CAN TV. Always here. Always yours. Experience the power of community television.
Got something to say about Chicago? Now's your chance to be heard. Chicago Newsroom 2.0 is launching Opinion, a new segment where everyday Chicagoans take the mic. Whether it's a neighborhood issue that's been ignored, a citywide concern that needs attention, or a fresh idea that could change our city, we want to hear from you. Submit your commentary at cantv.org/opinion. If selected, we'll invite you on air to share your perspective with all of Chicago. Experience the power of community television.
As election season approaches, voters are often confronted with a flood of information, and unfortunately, misinformation about how our elections work. From questions about ballot security and voter eligibility to concerns about election integrity and safety at polling places, rumors and myths can spread quickly, especially online. That's why we're launching a new Enterprise segment designed to separate fact from fiction. It's called Election Myth Busting with Max Bever. In this series, election expert Max Bever will help us take a closer look at some of the most common claims and misconceptions surrounding elections, explaining how the system actually works and what voters should know before heading to the polls. In today's first segment, we focus on the upcoming 2026 Illinois primary election and address questions many voters have about election integrity, ballot security, and what measures are in place to ensure safe and fair voting across Illinois. Max Bever joins us now to help break down the facts.
With the 2026 Illinois primary election coming up, you may be seeing a lot of claims online about election security, voter fraud, and how ballots are counted. Some of that information is accurate, but some of it simply isn't. So today, we're taking a moment to separate myth from fact. Myth number one, voter fraud is widespread and regularly changes election results. Fact, investigations across the country, including here in Illinois, have consistently found that voter fraud is extremely rare. Elections are overseen by bipartisan teams of election judges, and there are multiple safeguards in place to ensure every ballot is legitimate. Myth number 2, mail-in ballots aren't secure. Fact. In Illinois, vote-by-mail ballots go through several verification steps. Voters must sign their ballot envelope. Election officials verify that signature, and ballots are tracked through secure chain of custody procedures before they're counted. Myth number 3, voting machines are connected to the internet and can be hacked. Fact. Voting machines used to tabulate ballots in Illinois operate offline. They're never connected to the internet. They're tested before Election Day and audited afterwards to ensure accuracy. And myth number 4, polling places are chaotic or unsafe. Fact. Polling places are staffed by trained election judges whose job is to ensure voting happens safely, securely, and without intimidation. The bottom line is this: Illinois elections are built with multiple layers of safeguards designed to protect the integrity of the votes. If you want reliable information about voting, the best place to start is your own election authority. And most importantly, make a plan to vote.
Our thanks to Max Bever for helping separate fact from fiction as we approach the 2026 Illinois primary election. Accurate information is one of the most important tools voters have when participating in the democratic process. If you'd like to learn more about voting procedures, early voting locations, or how to request a mail ballot, your local election authority is the best place to start. And we'll continue to bring you more election myth-busting segments as we move closer to primary day. On the other side of the break, I'll talk about meditation and emotional wellness with Micah Krohn and Darcie Price-Wallace. Stay with us.
They say television is about sitting back. We say it's about stepping up. Your block has stories worth telling. Your neighbors have voices worth hearing. Chicago has a heartbeat worth sharing. Stop watching their world. Start showing yours. It's time to tune in and be seen. Can TV, always here, always yours. Experience the power of community television.
In our neighborhoods, healing begins in community. My name is Rafia Maxey Cole, founder of Soul Survivors of Chicago, a nonprofit organization breaking stigma around mental health, suicide prevention, and trauma-informed care, especially in Black and Brown communities. Learn more at soulsurvivorsofchicago.com.
In today's fast-paced world, many people are searching for ways to slow down, reduce stress, and reconnect with a sense of balance and clarity. One practice that has helped millions of people do exactly that is meditation, a centuries-old tradition rooted in cultures around the world and increasingly embraced in modern wellness and mental health conversations. Among the traditions that have brought meditation practices to the West are the teachings of Tibetan Buddhism, which emphasize mindfulness, compassion, and cultivating awareness through simple yet powerful contemplative techniques. This week, we're joined by two individuals who have spent years studying and practicing these approaches. Darcie Price-Wallace and Micah Krohn both study and practice meditation techniques informed by Tibetan Buddhist traditions. And they've experienced firsthand the personal and emotional benefits that a regular meditation practice can bring. They join us to share how they each found their way to meditation, the impact it has had on their lives, and how anyone, even complete beginners, can start building a meditation practice in simple, manageable ways. Darcie and Micah, welcome to the Newsroom.
Thank you.
So let's start from your personal journeys. How did each of you discover meditation, and then what drew you to the Tibetan Buddhist techniques? Darcie, I'll let you go first.
Okay. I started in college, ended up in India on a study abroad program, and was interested in or introduced to what's called calm abiding meditation, and was studying a Tibetan text called The Way of the Bodhisattva. I guess it's technically an Indian text. But didn't get enough, was really struck by my qualities of my teachers, and went back again and kept practicing. And yeah, it was really seeing the qualities of my teachers that kind of drove me to keep wanting to practice.
And what an experience to be in India, which you think is like one of the homes when you think about meditation and that holistic wellness experience. Okay, Micah, what about you?
Well, 20 years ago, I started attending Tai Chi workshops at a Tibetan Buddhist meditation retreat center. So that was my first contact with a community of meditators. And I was drawn to the Tibetan Buddhist practices of working with the mind and emotions, basically because I needed something strong to deal with strong emotions that I was struggling with at the time, anger and depression. So this looked like something that seemed trustworthy, and the practices seemed easy to put into practice in my life.
I love how it sounds like with Tai Chi, you think of it as a physical, and then you have the physical, and then the meditative, like mind practice as well, because a lot of people don't realize they are interconnected, at least my
Absolutely.
understanding. Okay, so for many people, practicing meditation is really mysterious at first. I have to tell you, I just came back from a meditation retreat, I think I shared with you, and wow, it's a little overwhelming at first. So what were what early experiences helped you really like hone your practice of meditation? And what advice would you give to people who can't keep their minds from wandering when they're meditating?
Well, for me, I never found meditation intimidating or mysterious. It was more like, I want to have this in my life, so what's it gonna take for me to put this into my life? So I started with a goal of sitting quietly, watching my breath for just 7 minutes a day. And the goal was to do it every day, and I was able to do that in short periods of time, and it took.
Morning or night? Did you have a time that was better for you?
For me, morning. When I get up first thing in the morning was just the time that worked for me.
How about you, Darcie?
Yeah, morning is best for me as well. And I think just in terms of advice from my own teachers, just to let go of expectations. I think I thought something magical would happen. I was 20, and maybe I hoped it would happen. So just having the recognition that it's really something that it's grounding, clarifying, and not necessarily magical.
And do you have that summit, when you first started, did you have a time, I'm gonna do 10 minutes or 5 minutes to kind of ease into it?
No, I mean, I was more of a structured program, I guess, where we were meditating twice a day, so I had a structure built in. And my structure sort of wanes and comes and goes, but morning is the best time for me to practice.
Okay, so people that are watching don't realize you have a very calming presence, both of you. And I believe that has to do with meditation. I believe that you kind of free your mind and you clear your head, and that energy gets expended outwards. When did you start seeing the immediate effects, both personally and maybe externally as you were engaging with others?
I think from the very start, I felt beneficial effects. It was like opening windows and letting fresh air into a stuffy room. And so it was from the very start. And then over time, I continued to see value and additional benefits over time.
How about you, Darcie?
I think I see the benefits the most when I'm having a hard time. If I feel annoyed or angry, I can just recognize that and notice it. And the more I practice, the more it kind of makes space for me to see when the difficult things are coming up, and rather than reacting to them. So
you have definitely noticed this changed in managing stress and emotional well-being. And how about interaction with people in your close people in your lives? Have you found that helpful?
Absolutely. I feel more at ease with myself and with others, and I feel more patient with myself and with others. So it's been noticeably and significantly beneficial.
I suspect it's the same thing for you as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So some people think that meditation requires, sitting in silence for, more than 7 minutes, that's for sure. They think sometimes you have to sit in meditation or guided meditation for an hour. What are some common misconceptions that you've seen and maybe that you've heard about in meditation since you've been engaging in your practices?
Well, common misconceptions. Number one, that you have to be sitting cross-legged on the floor. Number two, that you have to get rid of all your thoughts. Number three, that you have to meditate for at least 20 minutes a day. And number four, I would say that meditation only happens when you're sitting on the cushion in a formal meditation situation. So you don't have to be sitting cross-legged on the floor. We could be sitting right here as we are now. We could be standing. We could be walking. Meditation is a practice where you're engaging your mind, and you can do it at any time, anywhere. As far as getting rid of all your thoughts, that would be very difficult to do. And actually, we use thoughts as a tool in our meditation practice. We're focusing on an object, maybe the breath. The mind gets distracted, as it always does with a thought, and then we recognize that we're distracted, and we use the thought and that recognition as a prompt for returning to the object of meditation, maybe the breath. So that's what we're that's the skill that we're developing in meditation, is this ability to recognize distraction and come back to non-distraction. So thoughts can be powerful tools in meditation.
Darcie, what about you? Any other misconceptions that Micah had maybe that you heard or felt as you've been, really experiencing your practice?
Sure. Yeah, Micah covered a lot of them. I think, again, just this idea that it's not something everyone can do, but it is actually something anyone can do anytime. One of the things that I found really helpful is we'll hear this from lots of different meditation teachers, is that anything can be meditation. So even an act of washing the dishes or folding the laundry, what is the presence or the perception that you bring to that moment? Thinking of like the gift you're giving your family by just cleaning off their dish, or folding someone's clothes, folding your own clothes, that each of these moments can also be something. So it doesn't have to be something esoteric, or you don't have to be in a cave. Your retreat can be your own home. It can be your own space.
Well, I love that. I am going to think about that next time I unload the dishwasher. That is going to be part of my meditative practice. But that's really important. It's important for people to understand, like you were saying, Micah, it's not about just sitting in quiet silence on a pillow. You can meditate at any time, any point of your life. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing such incredibly important tidbits on how to start meditation, the importance of meditation, the value of meditation. I know we're going to be sharing some more resources with our viewers. So thank you. Thank you for taking the time for sharing with us.
That's great.
On the other side of the break, Access Community Health Network CEO Mahomed Ouedraogo is here to share his thoughts on the 340B program. Opinion is next.
Got something to say about Chicago? Now's your chance to be heard. Chicago Newsroom 2.0 is launching Opinion, a new segment where everyday Chicagoans take the mic. Whether it's a neighborhood issue that's been ignored, a citywide concern that needs attention, or a fresh idea that could change our city, we want to hear from you. Submit your commentary at cantv.org/opinion. If selected, we'll invite you on air to share your perspective with all of Chicago. Experience the power of community television.
I'm Rayshawn Vance.
And I'm Raymond Vance.
We are Sapphire Rays of Sunshine, a nonprofit in Chicago using jazz and R&B music to combat depression.
Through performances and workshops, we create musical pathways to wellness, fostering resilience, healing, and joy.
Learn more at sros.org.
Here now to share his thoughts on the 340B program is Access Community Health Network Chief Executive Officer Mahomed Ouedraogo.
Every year, Access Community Health Network serves more than 150,000 patients, making us the largest network of community health centers in Illinois. Many of the patients we serve are working families, seniors, and individuals who rely on community health centers as their primary source of care. Today, I want to talk to you about something that has a profound impact on their ability to stay healthy, a program known as 340B. The 340B program was created by Congress in 1992 and requires drugs manufacturers to provide eligible healthcare providers, like community health centers, with prescription medication at significantly reduced prices. For our patients, those savings can mean everything. At Access, nearly 78% of our patients rely on medication made affordable through the 340B program. In some cases, a medication that might normally cost more than $270 can cost less than $2. Those savings ensure that people are not forced to make impossible choices, like deciding whether to pay for rent or groceries instead of the medication they need to survive. Simply put, 340B saves lives. But the program does more than help patients afford medicine. It also helps health centers like Access provide comprehensive care to our communities. Savings from the 340B programs allow us to reinvest in services such as expanded patient care, facility improvements, job creation, and critical programs like mental health support. In many ways, these resources help sustain the very safety net health system that millions of Americans depend on. Unfortunately, the 340B program in Illinois is now facing serious challenges, and its future is uncertain. That's why there is important legislation currently awaiting action in Springfield. House Bill 2371 SA2 will help protect the 340B program and ensure that health centers can continue providing affordable medications and care to the communities that depend on them. Passing this bill will help protect access to life-saving medications and strengthen community health care across Illinois. And the best part is this: it won't cost the state a dime. Community health centers are the backbone of our healthcare system. We are the safety net that serves those who might otherwise have nowhere to turn. So today, I'm asking Illinois residents to contact their state representatives and urge them to call and pass House Bill 2371 SA2, because protecting the 340B programs means protecting access to care and protecting the health of our communities. I'm Mahomed Ouedraogo, and that's my opinion.
We want to hear from you, Chicago. Got an opinion on a topic you've been wanting to get off your chest? CAN TV is the place to do it. Share your opinion with us in 250 words or less. If your submission is selected, we'll invite you to join us on the air to present your perspective to the entire city.
That's our time for this week. As always, thank you for making time for CAN TV and Chicago Newsroom 2.0 in your busy day. Maria, it's been an absolute pleasure having you join us as co-host today.
Thank you, Suzette. This has been such an absolute joyful time, and thank you for the invitation. And thanks to CAN TV for all that it does to really bring Chicago and everything that's important to our Chicago to its viewers.
That's right. Until next time, be well and well informed.